Alrighty, what we're going to be talking about today is Satanism, also known as the dark side of MGTOW. That would be the men going their own way movement, as opposed to the light side of talking about relationships. And so this is something that I've done for many, many years, although I haven't produced a MGTOW video for years. The reason I stopped making MGTOW is that I discovered that there are racists and white supremacists in MGTOW that don't have a good grasp of modern female psychology. They're looking at things through their own perspective. And there's a lot of people out there that will love the perspective of somebody different, but they won't like hearing perhaps their own experiences that may be different. So they may be liking the idea of women being exposed and the selfish nature of the modern women being exposed, but they may covet their own white supremacy ideology. Some of them may also be into fake conspiracy trash, blaming the Muslims, blaming the immigrants, assuming that all the women are getting involved in chasing foreigner sausage. So that's why, even though Sandman gave me shout outs in the past, I don't have anything to do with creating current MGTOW content on my current platforms. And like I said, it does tend to attract psychopaths and people that are mentally unstable. And so for years, I've exposed many things that I'm not going to get into now, but they deal with foreign nation states. I've also talked about the dark side of Islam, also white supremacy. I've exposed that. I've also exposed black supremacy. I've gone where MGTOW people typically don't go. And a lot of them, you know, they have been, because they're isolated and some of them may be incels, they have rage inside. I am not an incel. Okay, I could get out there and go to strip clubs or meet people online, but because I'm a spiritual man, I also have a new book here called A Timeless Reality. It's by a Sufi. I'm not Muslim. I'm more of a Gnostic, but I also don't agree with a lot of Gnostics out there that have fallen into white supremacy and blaming foreigners and basically being silent about genocide. I am not silent about genocide. It's a big part of the content on my channel. So it's not a surprise that people on the dark side of MGTOW in the past wanted to bully me and put me down, certain names that I'm not going to repeat. But there are some very messed up, mentally ill people in MGTOW because, again, when men are isolated from women, they may attack other men with light in their heart and act like they're in prison. See, I find it disgusting that men rape men in prison. I'm not turned on by homosexuality. I'm turned off by it. I'm not for open borders. And if I was in charge of immigration, I would not be flooding many places with Muslim immigrants. Okay, I would actually put them in places where they're more like welcome. So don't misconfuse what I'm saying for leftist ideology. I've made many, many videos exposing the left, right? So understand, be intelligent here. I want intelligent MGTOW people on the spiritual side to find my work. That's why I'm going to make this video. So listen to what I'm saying. First of all, it's totally gay and homosexual for men to rape men in prison, but because they're so lust-filled and because they don't know how to do something and go into spirit, I encourage that you meditate. I encourage that you take this time when there's an increase in solar energy, right? If you watch my channel, you're going to learn a lot. If you want to continue to be a dumbass, hit the back button right now. If you want to learn things you've never learned before that are way outside the box of MGTOW, keep watching. And I'm not going to pull it all out there in this first video. But there's a reason why I feel called to return to MGTOW and talk to you guys about the darkness in MGTOW for those of you that are truly spiritual. And so, the modern day Homo sapien man, also known as a humanoid, in this world of the android ape, that is these modern day apes that are running around with cell phones, in this world of racism and hierarchy based on classism, based on what country you're from, how much money you make, what city you're from, what your politics are, whether you're left or right. See, all this is just straight up craziness. And so people are running around looking at each other like, oh, you're a high value monkey. Oh, you're a low value monkey. They are straight up being possessed by demons in many cases. And so you want to rise above that. You want to get into your heart. Get outside your head, get into your heart and your spiritual space. Don't be lost in lust. I have sexual feelings that I want to act on. I can go out and bed down with a woman if I want to, but you see, I have to prostitute my own morals and integrity to do so. I talked about this in a video that went viral when I made my first MGTOW video, and it attracted a lot of people to my channel. The video had 500,000 views. I pulled it off the internet. Why did I pull it off the internet? But I'm going to bring it back this winter on my main channel. Because it attracted too many MGTOW people to my content that have a soft space in their heart for white supremacy and falsely believing that the white women have turned to, quote, what Sandman calls the foreigner sausage. And while there may be some women in Europe where they're far more sexually open, with the arrival of refugees, and there may be an increase in humans like me that are part Anglo, part of the East. And so I understand that people that are genuine incels that are not able to communicate with a woman why they feel angry. But a lot of people have chosen to embrace racism, and they've chosen to look away from personal development and becoming a better man. How many of you take time to pump iron? How many of you take time to eat organic grass-fed beef? How many of you take time to walk for hours every day and drink organic coffee? How many of you are authors? I'm an author. How many of you have been on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie? How many of you have interviewed Alex Jones and David Icke? I'm not fans of those guys, but back in the day, I interviewed them. How many of you consider yourselves super aware of the real alien agenda over human society right now? Because if you really want to understand what's going on with the relationship gender warfare, you've got to understand from the top down how truly good men are being oppressed and being pushed out of society. And so because I talk so much truth, I'm heavily shadow banned, and I live in extreme poverty. I used to live off grid, no longer live off grid. I was mocked for living off grid by a certain prominent MGTOW person who made slanderous videos about me. I demonstrated the martial arts and promoted self-defense, and he made it seem like I was threatening my audience with martial arts techniques. Only a weak man with a weak consciousness, with no spirit, no testosterone, would pick on a shorter man of 5'6", 5'7", who doesn't even have family, who was pushed into homelessness. Only a psychopath would do that. And I'm of the opinion, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, that psychopaths are the most popular in MGTOW. Whether it be one person or the other. People have loyalty to these people like they have loyalty to Alex Jones or Donald Trump or people on the far right. And so for those of you that don't identify with racism, that don't identify with far right, that don't identify with being a bully, same thing as we talked about, like bullies in prison, that will see a man that's different than the rest and try to bully him, especially those that have light, in some cases rape them. And those of you out there that want to really understand what's been happening to the woman's mind, the woman's brain, you need an additional perspective that isn't warped by the likes of Sandman and others. Okay? So I have lots of experience sleeping with women, bringing me back to my point. And if you're a man of God and you're pushing back against Satan's kingdom and you're outside the box of MGTOW and you're talking about a wide range of things, the reason why you can't just rip your clothes off and get fellatio with random chicks is because there's vampires, dude, amongst us that will straight up suck your load down into their throat and swallow it and take on your essence. Okay? Many women that sleep with you, in some cases, hate your ass. Likewise, there's many men that sleep with women and hate them. I want you to be on board my anti-war, anti-racist stance and understand that all the world's races are being manipulated by these dark forces. And it's not just white women. It's women around the world that are subservient to the dark one. So in this world of feminism, let's progress the conversation forward. Now that we talked about why men like me and others, we don't just sleep around with random chicks, no matter how horny we get and how much we want to fuck and how much we want to watch porn, and I mean all day long, and how much we want to go to the strip club, and I want to go to the strip club, I admit it. And I happen to live in an area where the women here are ugly. They're obese. This area is predominantly white, black, and Latino. And each one of those ethnicities is capable of having beautiful women within it, not here. So there's a difference between being an incel and being a man that is abstaining from pornography, from strip clubs, from meeting random women on the internet, because the women today of the various ethnicities, they act like they're so independent. They act like they're feminists, but they're totally subservient to evil, wicked men. Most of you out there that are men, white men, black men, you should want a woman in your life that wants men to be good men, to be men that are other than super soldiers, other than in the military, other than cops. For men in MGTOW to think that the white women are all going for foreigner sausage is a lie. There are some women that get off by maybe dating a crazy Muslim who likes to choke them and beat them, but not all Muslims are like that. And I've explained in other videos on other channels why you don't see an abundance of good Muslims in the truth movement. Although there is an increase in some of them creating content, but they're usually Arabic, Saudi Arabian, from Jordan, from Lebanon, maybe from Pakistan. Whereas if you look at the countries they're currently being occupied by the military or have been recently, such as Afghanistan, right, the algorithm will oppress those voices. Unless, of course, they censor themselves, right? Like certain family members that I have that are TikTok models and authors. As long as they don't expose the victims of war and what the U.S. has done, they can show their titties. They can show their ass and slap that ass. They don't even have to do that. Just get some tats, look really hot, go out with a white dude, never talk about the plight of your ancestors, and their algorithm could take them to the moon. And so I'm here to tell you that when you look at a woman's beauty, if you're just looking at a woman as a sex object and how perky her tits are and how great it is to have sex with her snatch, I'm going to go ahead and use foul language. If you're going to lay down with a woman who's going to easily, quickly spread her legs so you can fuck her real hard and real fast, why would she stay with you and not hop then from cock to cock to cock to cock? If you want a good woman, you have to be willing to be a good man. You can't just point the finger at the woman and get upset when the woman continues to be a whore. Again, hopping from cock to cock to cock to cock, like it's some sort of aerobics exercise. Fucking and sucking, fucking and sucking. You know, fisting here. Out of all the women that I've screwed, right, none of them have true love for me. Some of them obsess on my content, but they never message me and go, how are you? Some of them have shown themselves to be like psychotic, act like they have voices in the head. I took off from the internet for a few years. One crazy ass redhead who kept following my work was like, where's so-and-so? I'm going to file a missing persons report on so-and-so. Talking in the comment section of a dude that used black magic on me. So stupid, so screwed up in her head from whatever drugs she takes, and we're talking pharmaceuticals, that she doesn't have the common sense to realize that these people were harming me. And the thing is, keep this in mind for those of you that are MGTOW content creators. Keep this in mind for those of you that are MGTOW content consumers. A lot of the people that you engage with on the internet are straight up vampires. Yes, the real world supposedly sucks, the matrix. So we come into the internet, but you come into the internet and you come across a lot of people that have no empathy whatsoever. Because wake up, McFly, YouTube is social media. And on social media, there is a lack of empathy. Let me tell you some of the comments that came towards my way when I talked about living off grid. Oh, here we got another third world immigrant living without a toilet like in his home country. Again, I'm not from another country. My father is. My mother's white. Another comment. I wonder what side of the family that rat face comes from. Sand nigger this, sand nigger that. So, I am someone, by the way, that in my opinion, I think that I can pass for Palestinian. So a lot of people out there are pushing this fear all the migrant cards and think a lot of people like my content because I'm a super brain. I talk about things that no man does. I go way beyond Alex Jones, David Icke, Sandman, just name a content creator. I have lots of intelligence to me. And I'm willing to share some of that on this channel if people subscribe and I see some growth. If not, I'm not going to waste my time. I have knowledge about how we're affected by the sun. I have knowledge about the light side of martial arts as opposed to this MMA, UFC crap. I have knowledge about the proper self-defense weapons to invest in and why you, men of God, because this content really is for men of God, not men of Satan. There's many men of Satan lost in lust in MGTOW. This isn't for you. This bud's not for you. Men of God should know how to defend themselves without murdering a man, because that's a sin. We should be able to talk about different spiritual traditions from various faiths, but also talk about the Bible. Also talk about intuition, baby. Intuition. I got more books. So what is my intuition telling me? The vast majority of the human species is being led by demons. So a lot of women want to act like they are independent, but they're still subservient to bad men that are running this new world order system. However, there's a lot of people that talk about the new world order that are infected by the dark side. Lots of people on the far right. And there's lots of people on the far left, as I said in another video before this, that will actually call me a white supremacist because they look at my content and they see that I'm calling out the far left, that I'm calling out black supremacy, that I'm calling out the racism in some Arabs and Muslims. I will call out everybody's BS in a way that no man will, because I do not identify with tribalism. The only tribalism that I identify with is men of God coming together. I'm not a misogynist. That's another thing. To continue to tell you what's different about me in the MGTOW movement. However, I do not believe that the women that I have come across in this lifetime are prophets. Okay, there may be something to the belief that only men can be prophets. I have interviewed a certain individual that has predicted Russia and China attacking and invading this country. And if you want to see that, see me after class, right? But I'm not just going to put all my content before swine, pearls before swine. So let's move forward. I believe that even if women are crazy, insane in the membrane, that they still should be warned about the things that are to come, that men that have wives and girlfriends should know that when the system collapses, their women could be targets. And so for those of us that are single, not because we're incels for some of us, but because we see how unconscious the women are of today's day and age, and they have demons attached to them. They have lust demons, but they do not care about the land of some of our ancestors. Some of them have black supremacy ideology or white supremacy ideology. You know, there are some ghetto Latino chicks, but I don't really come across Latino supremacists, but gangbangers, yes. People tied into the cartel, yes. Keep in mind, a lot of people of Hispanic heritage, Mexican heritage, do a lot of nasty things to each other in Mexico and elsewhere. I'd love to go to Mexico, right? But it seems that, you know, only people like Mark Passio and Max Egan and others, you know, they seem to have the luxury to go to Mexico. Others, Derek Bros. But I've been advised to not go to Mexico. By the way, I love that song by Christopher Cross, Sailing. So I believe that society should prepare for a collapse, for solar flares, for the EMP. And when that comes, women will be shanghaied, i.e. kidnapped, and forced back into sexual slavery. And you should not want that just because you may feel that you're an incel. I would also stop calling yourself an incel. I would not use that language. The power of affirmations is important. So if you call yourself an incel, you're an incel. But if you acknowledge that you're choosing to not chase down dirty whores and get STDs, not to be confused with just sexually transmitted diseases, but sexually transmitted demons, then what you're doing is choosing to not be a slave to your own lust. I don't think that you should feel guilty per se about, quote, what's called masturbation. I don't necessarily believe in the no-fap movement, but I have some respect for it. But I don't automatically think that if you quit dating and if you quit porn, that you need to quit releasing that prana. Sometimes during certain moments, your body may need to release some energy. Just a perspective. So I don't agree with the mainstream MGTOW ideologies that we should never white knight. What we should not do is be lost in lust and sadness because the women that are possessed in this day and age do not like good men. And some men may not realize that they may have a higher consciousness to them, that they may have spiritual ideals within them. And so when you get into mainstream MGTOW and you start hanging around these other men, your energy could be lowered by their hate, by their wickedness, by their hate of women. What I understand is that this modern feminism has turned many women against men, and there is such a thing, just so you know, as white woman supremacy. And if you know something about white woman supremacy, how white women, even leftist women, will look down on those of us that are not totally white, even other white men. They will look down on white men. So they have a white woman supremacy ideology, and they don't want to take accountability for that. There are also black supremacists that are women as well. But I've also come across some black women that have a peaceful vibe. I advocate that you get outside the box of thinking with your cock. And you realize that in an ideal world, men and women should be able to live with each other and learn from each other and eat together, other than just men and women fornicating together and basically having lots of babies to serve the fertility gods. Oh, hail the fertility gods. Hail the many babies that will be born to be slaves of Satan, to come to suck on Satan's cock, to fight in Satan's wars and Satan's armies. There's something to be said about those of us that are abstaining from procreating. I had a horrible mother and a horrible father and are not true followers of God. But some of us were born, they say two wrongs don't make a right. But sometimes when it comes to math, two negatives do equal a positive. And so when I look at my psychopathic parents, they created me. And I believe that I am a messenger of God. And instead of me being inferior, like many white supremacists have tried to convince me that I am, I actually now acknowledge that I am intellectually and spiritually superior. That's why a lot of people, including Trump supporters, make a beeline for my work. Or some anti-racists will make a beeline for my work. Until, of course, I call out their bullshit, they will call me then, the right wing will call me then, a leftist snowflake. And the left-wingers will call me a conspiracy theorist, white supremacist, without fail. I've been creating content since 2004. I've interviewed Clyde Lewis of Coast to Coast AM. As I told you earlier, I've been on George Norrie's Coast to Coast AM. Actually, Clyde Lewis's Ground Zero Radio, correction. And many, many other names, and probably 15, 20 names of men that are no longer alive. Men like Jim Mars, men like Tex Mars, and on and on and on and on. But as a result of me being mixed and speaking my full truth, I have faced poverty, homelessness, because in reality, we're human and we were born with emotions. And so I came to find out that if you talk about your emotions with the internet, unfortunately, there are parasites on the internet that will take those vulnerabilities and use it against you. Now I'm a lot stronger, though, than I used to be. And to be honest with you, I don't want to be silent about the things that have bothered me about this world. Because I think that you and I, we have a lot in common. And you need to hear this from me, because I've learned this from others. You can be helped in greater ways by people that are not of your gender or ethnicity. But most of you are going to be of my gender. But it would be nice, to be frank with you, to meet a good woman who appreciates a good man, to be able to communicate with a good woman over email, for there to be some sort of flirtatious activity, and for her not to be corrupted by conspiracy theory, for her not to be corrupted by the Quran, for her not to be corrupted by the church. She could be, I guess, a Muslim or a Christian, but the average Muslims or Christians have their head up there you-know-what. So do a lot of Jews. Notice, by the way, how a lot of people are coming to the aid of Palestine for good reason. Look what Israel's doing, but they've never one day protested the wars that have resulted in millions dead in Afghanistan or Iraq. So I want women in my life that are going to be like my sister, that will help me write a book, that will help me expose a great many things, that want to hear an anti-war position, that want to hear from a MGTOW perspective that is not rooted in misogyny, who doesn't believe that we should bully people or put down people that want a quote-unquote white knight. Men like me shouldn't be pushed to the edges of society and silenced and intimidated. This is what the devil of this world does. It possesses people to go after other people that are men of God, to bully them into silence. And so when you're hungry and you're homeless and you don't have family, and you don't have good women in your life, but bad women in your life, you can easily just say, what's the point? I don't want to hurt anymore. I'm just going to quit uploading. And I basically stopped creating content for 3 years. And I try to work on myself, but you know what? In the end, I continue to suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer as a result of being silent. And I never actually started to heal and get better and get stronger, like my workouts getting stronger and also my diet improving, until the recent eclipse of October 2023. And it powered me up along with the increase in solar flares. And I knew that it was time to come home. Not a physical home, but for now, even though YouTube seems to be manipulated by the devil, it still is home for now. The only family I've ever had are people on the internet that have appreciated my content. Sometimes they got led into white supremacy and Trump worship and Alex Jones content, right? But there still are people out there that have been my friends in the past. People that I visited when I didn't have a home and I traveled around the nation on Greyhound. And I look back at the city of my birth. You know, most of you don't have a life story in which, because you went on cable access TV and you exposed all these things about the left and the right, that you ended up jobless and homeless and you ended up having to leave the city of your birth. Most of you don't have that story. And if you have been on access TV in the city of your birth, for those of you that are able to Google what that is and how it's different than YouTube, we're talking cable TV. Not cable TV and getting paid for it like Fox News, but access TV. Look it up if you don't know what that terminology is, right? And you will find out what it is. It only exists in certain cities. So when you put yourself out there and you expose the darkness of this world, the darkness of this world will zap you back. I want good men and good women to find my content, to leave supportive comments down below. And if you really appreciate my content, because this MGTOW content was actually much more popular than my main content, maybe there's a way that you can also give back to keep me on the air, so to speak, on YouTube, so that I may be able to pay for certain things, as I don't have dental insurance. I don't work a regular job. I'm suffering in isolation, living in a dangerous place in America that's not my original home, as my original home on the West Coast has been taken over by hipsters, by the cartel, by the homeless, and it's not really a home that I can come back to. And so in a way, I feel like a refugee in the nation that I was born in, living the American refugee experience, still waiting to find my true extended family, community, place here in America where I feel welcome, even though I am genetically different, right? So maybe those that are watching this video now may be my future allies. Only time will tell. But that's all for now. I have a lot more content. Let me know if this video struck a chord, and I will consider coming back with more.